If your sensor cables are damaged, you can repair them in the field or at a workbench using a splice connector and some simple tools. In addition to the splice connector, you will need a Phillips No. 1 screwdriver and a wire stripper. That's it! This video will show you how to quickly and easily repair your cable. First, use the cutting portion of your wire strippers to remove any damaged section of the sensor cable. If this would leave your final cable length too short for your application, additional cable can be ordered through customer support. Unscrew the nut and housing from the splice connector and insert each end of the cable through the nut and housing. If you are working in an area with loose debris, we recommend loosely tightening the nuts back onto the housings to keep them stationary and out of the way while the splice is completed. Use your Phillips screwdriver to loosen each of the 2 screws on the splice connector. The screws should be loosened enough that the wires can be pushed into the holes on the splice connector. Next, prepare the wires by stripping back one cable jacket approximately 3/4 of an inch, or about 2 centimeters. This is the length of the recessed area in the splice connector. All 3 inner wires should be free and exposed. If the metal outer sheath doesn't come away with the cable jacket, gently peel it off. Each inner wire should then be stripped approximately 1/4 of an inch, or about 1/2 of a centimeter. This is the length of the recessed area in one side of the splice connector. Repeat this process with the other cable end. Starting with one cable end, insert a single wire into each hole on one side of the splice connector. Note that the splice connector holes are labeled: orange for the neutral wire, brown for the live or hot wire, and gray for the ground wire. Repeat this process with the other cable end, ensuring that the wires line up with the same colors on the other side. Use your Phillips screwdriver to tighten the screws on the splice connector, then give each cable a gentle tug to ensure that the wires are secure. If the wires are not secure, loosen the screw on the splice connector and push the wires back into place before tightening the screw again. Finally, hand tighten the nut and shell ends onto the splice connector. To avoid damage to the splice connector, be careful not to over-tighten. Before checking the splice functionality, ensure there are no exposed wires around the green O-ring. If any wires are exposed, disassemble the splice and restart the process by trimming the wires and stripping the cable jackets and inner wires down to about 3/4 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch respectively, or about 2 centimeters and 1/2 of a centimeter respectively. If you are splicing a new stereo end connector onto a cable, you will need a Phillips No. 1 screwdriver, a wire stripper, and a stereo connector, in addition to the appropriate length of cable. If the old stereo end is still on the damaged cable, cut it as close to the base as possible to avoid losing excess cable. Then strip the cable jacket to 5/8 of an inch, or about 1.5 centimeters. the length of the square housing and terminal. Next, strip the inner wires about 1/4 inch or about 1/2 centimeter, the length of the green section of the stereo jack replacement. Begin by loosening each of the 3 screws onto the stereo connector enough to fit a wire inside, but do not remove them entirely. Note the labels next to each screw. The brown live wire will connect to the L hole, the orange neutral wire will connect to the R hole in the middle, and the gray ground wire will connect to the hole with the ground or earth symbol. Insert each wire into the appropriate hole. The brown wire should be inserted into the L hole, as shown here. After inserting the wire, tighten its screw and gently tug the wire to ensure that it's secure. If the wire feels loose, loosen the screw and set the wire more securely in the hole. Then tighten the screw again. The orange wire will be inserted into the R hole, and the gray wire will be inserted into the hole marked with the ground or earth symbol. Finally, check that the splice is successful by plugging the wire into your ZSC or ZL6 data logger and checking the functionality of your sensor.